Hi, welcome to Next Level Contractor. I'm Michael Bourgeois, and here in Next Level Contractor, our goal is to help brand new contractors go through the journey of becoming a successful business owner. We want to help you go from day one to day 800 without becoming a statistic, from $0 to $1 million. So if you are a brand new contractor or you're stuck in a rut and can't cross that threshold over a few $100,000 and you're trying to get to $1 million, this is the spot for you. We have with us today Mr. Thomas Hicken, or also known as Plumber Tom. Tom is a licensed plumbing contractor who owns his own successful plumbing business. He is also a professor at Utah State University or University of Utah?
Yeah, it's Utah State
Which one is it, Tom?
University. Yeah.
Utah State University. He teaches a plumbing contractors program, a trade program at Utah State University. So he has got all kinds of knowledge on plumbing and business ownership. And this is part two. Part one you can check out if you go to the channel. Part two here today is what we're recording. So Tom has been kind enough and generous enough with his time to grace us again. So thanks for being here, Tom.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So Tom, I know your time is valuable, and what we do here is we just get right into it. So I have a question for you. It's kind of a loaded question, but I feel like if anybody can answer it smoothly, it would be you. The question is truly just walk us through what would you do if you lost it all, right? If you lost your teaching job and you lost your company for whatever, we're talking worst case scenario, hypothetical, who knows, not your fault, whatever it is. If you had to start over tomorrow in a new state where no one knows you, and all you had was a freshly printed plumbing contractor's license, and that's all you've got, what would you do to get back on your feet?
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario, and, ironically, I've actually kind of been through that. I ran a service and repair
Fun.
business for 10 years, and then I sold off as I moved my career into, education, this was in 2020, I sold off most of my business to another plumbing company, and I still
Okay.
had, like, my contractor license and my insurance, but basically all my customers were gone, and there was a non-compete agreement that moved them off. So, I was doing just my education career, but, all along, so long as I've been teaching, I've really come to feel like I need to be directly involved in the trade. And so, staying within the lines, like, when I had a non-compete agreement, it was like, "Okay, I can't touch any customers I previously had. I don't do the type of work that I was doing. It was all service work, but the realm of new construction, residential, I could handle myself, was open, and I basically had to start my business over again."
Wow.
And so I've kind of been through that scenario, and if I were to do that in a new state, it would be a similar situation where just from startup, you got your once you get your pieces in place, like you got your doors open and your insurance is there and your licenses, and now you can actually take the work.
So you're legally in business, and that's all you got.
Yeah, then obviously the next thing is marketing. And I'll tell you, I hate marketing because I'm a tradesman. I like the hands-on. I don't mind interacting with people. I like that. But I have a really bad taste in my mouth from sales, like, and, all of us have those negative sales experiences. You go to the dealership, I'll use car dealership. Some of them are really pretty cool. I
Everyone
mean, I'll
does.
give them that.
Everybody uses car dealerships.
And car dealerships have, over time, really tried to hide their their aggressive strategies, right? But they still have them. It was funny because one day I was sitting in my plumbing van was getting repaired at the dealership, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and the next room was their training room. And I'm listening to this guy getting training, and it was very, very pointed, very aggressive, even though they come across now and they're much more conscious of their presence. Anyway, I've had a lot of negative experiences with sales, and the reality is you have to be a salesman. Now, I've actually taken time to go back and watch some of the other episodes here on Next Level Contractor and really enjoyed it. I mean, like the advice that's coming through from all of these professionals. That's one thing I'll say is like, take advantage of the free advice, take advantage of this information because if there's anything I wish I'd known early on, it was like, how do I get help from someone who knows? And one of the cool things I think Noah pointed out is there's a lot of people who are like successful professionals who are willing to give you information. Um, and so taking that advice would be really important. But going back to marketing, I think Noah covered a lot of really good startup as far as how to use social media, how to use those marketing tools. But I might like if I'm going to a new state, along with those efforts of trying to like get my name out there, I'll probably focus here on like how do I get into people's networks, my customers' networks, right? And you hear in marketing, one of the best ways to go about it is a customer like providing, sorry, let me say it this way, word of mouth, right? You want the customers to tell other people about you. And
Can't get any better than that, right?
right, Noah had suggested asking people for those reviews, you know, like because that's key in getting like your Google and recognition is having people who will give you good reviews, and you can solicit those. But better than that is when they're telling people that they know, hey, if I'm a plumber, I know this plumber, and he's the best plumber I've ever seen. Like you totally have to use him next time, and getting into those circles, right? So I do have some suggestions on that. And I've actually written a book. I've done a lot of thinking over time on like what I learned that I would like to share. And I haven't published this book. I like wrote it and I anyway, it's like,
Oh, man, you just dangle it and then say you can't have it?
well, I'll get it out there sometime, but I'll share this from it. I have this diagram that I drew up, customer peace of mind. Do you mind throwing that up on the screen
Yeah,
here?
absolutely.
So as far as as far as what do your customers want? Yeah, I took on when I started my business, I took on someone else's business. I bought out another service plumber shortly after I started my business. And one of my greatest fears was I'm not this guy. And what if these customers don't want me? What if they see that I'm different or that I don't know as much? Here was this seasoned retiring plumber. He was in his 60s. I was a new startup, like 30 years old, and looked like I was just out of high school. And people would say, like, are you sure you're qualified to do this? You're not that old guy that knows everything. And I struggled a lot with this fear of destroying my business. Where now I had bought a business and I was paying him. I didn't want to fail. So I spent a lot of time analyzing what do my customers want because they would tell me what they want. They would say, you know, he used to do this or he used to do that. And as I listened and really put together, like, what do customers want? This is what I came to, which is you've got the customer's needs. That's at the bottom. And ultimately, if you want word of mouth, this is where I'm going with this. If you want customers to tell other people about you, then you have to get them peace of mind. That's ultimately what we want to deliver. And that could be said in a lot of different ways. Different companies have different logos or mottos or mantras or whatever. But if we just look at it, if you can provide an experience for a customer that provides solid peace of mind, then you've got it. They will tell other people. And in order to get that, as I examined it, there were these three pillars that hold up that peace of mind: quality, affordability, and reliability. And this is just me analyzing it, but these are interrelated, but not all of them are as important to every customer. So let me go through these real quick. Quality is obvious, right? Especially as a hands-on contractor, I should be providing the best product that I can if I want to satisfy my customers. That includes the workmanship, the materials I use, everything about that experience. I should present the best quality possible. And a lot of people, that's what they ask for, like, I want you to do this. I want you to do this right. Affordability is the money side, right? Where people they want a good price. They want to know that when they pay this is a good value. And it's just all about like how affordable that is. Reliability is about timeliness. Are you there when you say you're going to be there? Were you able to meet that commitment? And these are interrelated. And in order to establish the customer peace of mind, you have to get to know the customer, because different customers value these different pillars on different levels. So let me give an example of each. Quality. If a customer really values quality, then they're going to say to me, I care more about the quality of this. I don't care how much this costs. And customers will literally say that to me, like, look, I don't care how much this costs. I know you're going to do a good job. That's why I've hired you. Because those customers just want quality, or that's their main focus, right? You'll get other customers that are into affordability, and they're just constantly worried about the price. They want to know that they're not paying any more than they have to. And in fact, they'll even give up a little bit of quality. Like, you know what? Just put in the cheaper faucet because I'm more interested in the affordability than in the
Right.
quality. And then you get the reliability side where I'll use plumbing for an example.
Mhm.
If it's an emergency, my water heater died or my toilet is plugged. These are things that are immediate needs, and timeliness is everything. And in that sense, the customer is going to want more than anything. They want you there. They want to be able to rely on you, and they're willing to pay more, right? And this is where sometimes you have to sacrifice one or the other. Like, if I'm going to be there, I'm going to show up and fix your water heater in the middle of the night. You better believe it's not going to be affordable, right? Is this
Right.
gonna cost more
Right.
because now I can deliver a quality water heater install in the middle of the night, and that's very reliable, but you're gonna sacrifice some affordability. On the other hand, if affordability is your focus, then you may sacrifice some of the quality. And you see how these kinda interrelate, right? But
Absolutely.
ultimately, the key is to get to know what your customer wants. Because if you think that all they want is quality, but you're not very affordable, then you might not meet that customer's needs. They might be like, "Well, you're too expensive. I don't want you." And that's again where on the other hand, if there's a customer that really into quality and doesn't care as much about affordability, then you're going to play different. So you get to know the customers by asking questions, and a lot of times they'll tell you what they want, like the ones that say, I don't care how much this costs. I just want quality. Or I really care how much this costs. Those people will tell you their whole financial history. I mean, like going on and on
Right.
about how
Yeah.
last week I
So
spent this
please
money
don't
and
charge me too much. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and even though they might not say it in those words, you read between the lines when they're constantly talking about their money problems and you go, well, I can see what your focus is, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And in the end, like if you can deliver what the customer wants, the balance between these quality, affordability, and reliability, then what you deliver is peace of mind. And once you give a customer that, then that customer is going to have like, they're going to be your next fan club, right? They're the ones that are going to go out. They might even post it on their media, be like, hey, this plumber is awesome. At a minimum, when their friends, neighbors, family, anyone else has a plumbing problem, they're going to call, they're going to say, hey, go talk to that plumber, right? So you get into their circles by providing them with that incredible customer experience. And as far as marketing goes, that doesn't cost anything as far as dollars, but it does take focus, and it also takes time. And that's where like you've got to have these other marketing efforts going. So with the scenario of like I'm starting in a new state, I don't know anyone, I'm just here with my license. I'm going to need to get out and start those other networking um, um, efforts. But then every time I get a job, if I go through this and make sure that I've met the customer's needs and provided customer peace of mind, then it's little by little, but each of those customers is a win, and they start telling other people, and over time it's inevitable. This is just a law of business that when you do an awesome job, people come to you in greater numbers. You will just have more customers. And it takes time for that to grow, but it happens every single time.
So as long as you're doing a good job, right? As long as you're giving that peace of mind.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's
That
one thing that I would um, emphasize, as far as marketing is seek for the word of mouth by the quality that you deliver, by giving them peace of mind, and that'll make all the difference in the growth of your business. So,
without having to spend a bunch of marketing dollars too.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know people, business owners who, I mean, they've completely disregarded quality, and they throw everything they've got into marketing, so they're able to continue to get new business, but they never get referrals.
Yeah. Yeah, there's plumbers that run like that where um and they're not even that affordable. Their focus is entirely on reliability, and they're a
Right.
revolving door because they'll go and service the customer.
All
They
their
got
business is new business because
all
they
business
can't
is
get
new
anybody to
business,
call
and
them
they
again.
just market like crazy and charge a whole bunch of money, and then it's just on to the next
Do
one.
mediocre work at best.
Yeah, but, like, really, how far is that gonna get you? And I don't know, like, if you have any pride in yourself and your work and your relationships, like, that's not a good way to go, right?
Yeah, that's that's probably the fly by night, right? And,
Yeah,
in 2 years, they'll have a brand new company under a different name, or they'll rebrand, or, they'll have to change the name or do something
yeah,
because their
exactly.
reputation will just be in the toilet. But, plumbing,
Yeah,
plumbing joke.
that's a good one. Nice pun. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's about what I have to say on customer peace of mind. I have several other like thoughts about achieving peace of mind. I have employee peace of mind. How do you achieve that? And these might be other conversations for another day. And then I have how do you get peace of mind as the owner? But there's probably a couple other things that I'd speak to on our scenario today with starting. If I was starting brand new, what would I do? And I guess what I'm saying is we can probably take the slide off because I won't be using that much more in what we're talking about. But maybe we could answer this question. How can I make more money? That isn't that like what every contractor wants? I mean, that's the ultimate
That's
question.
probably at the core of the question. Hey, if you started over tomorrow, what would you do? So I guess to rephrase, if you started over tomorrow, how would you make money? Yeah, how would
Yeah.
you survive?
And I will pause and say that for me in running a business, money's the lifeblood. Like, and that's just a reality of business. Last time I talked about the entity and how it's a living thing and that
Right.
can become a monster. But what feeds it and what makes it live is the money. And so sometimes we fixate on money, but I will right up front say that I do not believe money equals happiness. And that's a whole different conversation about how to be happy. But what I found with myself over running a business, maybe this is one of the lessons of what I wish I'd known. I allowed over time my happiness level to be attached to my bank account and the levels of money that were in there. And I think it's easy for us as contractors to fall into that. When I'm doing really well, man, I'm high. I feel so good. It's seriously
Yeah.
like when I just like my bank account just got hit with a whole bunch of receivables, and now I'm like, yeah, look at all this I've got right now.
Yeah.
But then at the same
A
time, when
lot of
I had
money
made
does feel better than no money. Yeah.
yeah, when I had made choices that made it harder and then the money was scarce, boy, I got some low emotional places. And I learned over time that attaching my emotions to the money is not a way to be happy, and it's not a reason to run a business. So, all that said, I mean, like, be careful as you're seeking money. You have to have it. You have to use it to feed your business and to feed yourself and to live. But if it's the only thing, then you're on a roller coaster and it could be hard. But okay, going back to like how might I go about
Boundary
trying to
ways.
make more money? Um, First of all, I'll tell this story. Money is made in the details of the business. So you've got to have some tracking systems. You've got to be aware of how much you spend and what you charge in relation to that. So let me go back to the beginning of my business. I opened my doors and I immediately bought a service business from a retiring plumber. He was old school. I mentioned last time he had handwritten ledgers. Everything he did was just on paper. So when he sold me the business, I was just buying a phone number, access to customers, and hoping that I could make a go at it.
Hey, Tom, I I just I think this is actually really poignant with what you're saying here. There are probably some contractors out there who would absolutely love to acquire an existing business. Um, can you take 5 minutes and talk about what that process was like? I mean, did you know the guy? Were you shopping for a business? Did you use an agency? Was there an appraisal involved? I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can pause and I can just speak to that real quick.
yeah.
It was I had just started up and I went to the plumbing supplier and the plumbing suppliers know the other plumbers and one of them knew of this guy who was retiring. Now I'd seen his van around town. I kind of knew who he was, but the plumbing supplier actually connected us. Said, "You two ought to talk to each other because you're going out and he's coming in, and maybe you could work it out." But I mean, even without that sort of a connection, the ideal people that you would want to buy a business from would be the ones that are retiring because hopefully they have an established customer base. And there's actually a lot of them out there, I think, right now in the trades that are like, yeah, I think I'm about done with this because it's time to retire. But how do I get out of it? What's my exit strategy? And they may not have a good one. And you could be that exit strategy if you want to buy it. But to buy a business, yeah, it should be appraised. Accountants can do appraisal. There's also brokers that can do appraisals on businesses, and they can give you about an idea of what it costs. That's based on the assets that exist and the amount of money that that company brings in over certain years. They'll look at profit loss statements, and then yeah, you want to work it out. We had an attorney in the mix who helped us with all the details. But ultimately, buying a business, if you can work that out, is an excellent way to just supercharge or jumpstart a business because you've got access to customers that they're just going to keep calling, and so I think it's a really good option. But
Gotcha.
did that answer that
Thank you.
question?
Yes, it did. It did. So yeah, distributors, brokers, appraisals involved.
Yeah,
So very
yeah. And
cool.
then
Thank you.
interestingly,
Thanks.
the what happened to me after that was I was like, I bought it and then I was paying him for the business, and immediately I was like, I want to be him because I would love to be the guy that's just getting a check, right? And that's where in
Yeah,
2020
almost instantly, huh?
when I sold
So you're
off
all
my
busy working and you're like, I want to be that guy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cool to be involved and grow my company and everything, but ultimately, like, to be the guy that's just getting paid because he used to have a business every month, a big check, like, heck yeah. And I always wanted that. For 10 years, I wanted that, and then, I mentioned in 2020, I sold off a big chunk of my business, and I
Mhm.
got to be that guy for a couple of years.
Nice.
Like, every month, I got a fat check, and I was
There you
like,
go.
"That's what I always wanted."
Yeah, there we go. This episode of the Next Level Contractor is sponsored by One Contractor Solutions, Florida's leading provider of back office services for builders, contractors, subcontractors, and developers. From permit expediting and private provider services to contractor municipality registrations, insurance supplement assistance, and bookkeeping, they are your one-stop shop for managing your contractor back office. Save time and money with One Contractor Solutions. Get a free, no obligation quote today at www.onecontractorsolutions.com or call 954 233 0155. It's not you didn't have to have, $10 million all at once to give this guy, right?
No.
You worked out a payment plan to
Yeah,
buy this guy's business. So it was affordable for you to do this.
exactly, yeah.
Is that a pretty standard practice when
Yeah, no,
acquiring a business?
ideally, I mean, what I got was best case scenario because he was willing to do a personal loan. And of course, we had contracts
That
on
is best
this
case. Yeah.
to protect him and me, but he was willing to just accept my word and to accept my payments, you know? So that way I didn't have to go through a bank and get a loan and have interest. Um, it was just in a set amount that I was gonna pay him, and I paid him every month. And that's actually how I set it up when I sold the big chunk of my business, 'cause it worked for me, and I was like, "Well, hey, dude, if you're gonna buy this, I'll do a personal loan for you." And I'm not saying the personal loan's a great idea, 'cause it
Yeah,
could
it
be a
could go
bad idea,
bad.
you know?
It could go bad. But it
But,
worked for you. But
for
banks
us
will write loans for acquiring a business, right? There's a commercial loan that exists for someone that wants to buy a business.
yeah. Yeah, those are some options, but anyway, I've it was a good experience on both ends, you know? Buying one jump started my business, selling one felt awesome because I got a check all the time, and, those are some exit strategies that, you know, you should think about no matter what stage your business is at, but maybe I could jump back to this, I had
Oh, yeah,
just bought
please
his
do.
business, and everything was handwritten, and I just inherited his list. So we're doing service work. We had vans, plumbing vans stocked with parts so that when you show up, you've got everything you need, you're ready to go. But that's literally thousands of plumbing parts in a vehicle. And I took his lists. They were just in a folder, just written, and he would write the prices and write what he wanted to charge for them. And I ran with that for a little while, and then over time, it's probably a year or 2 into it, I would bill my customer when I was done with the job, and then I go to the supplier and restock my van and realize I just paid more than what I charged my customer for. That can't be right, because I wasn't
Oh,
following it. I wasn't following it, and I wasn't enough into the details of my business. So after that, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna take a time out here, and I am gonna go through and inventory everything in my van. And then I'm gonna get from my supplier a list of all of those the cost of every single thing, down to the tiniest thing." And it seriously took me several days of sitting at a computer on a spreadsheet to detail out everything in my van and what I pay for it, my cost. And then I went and marked up all of those so I know exactly what I charge my customers. Now, I had an interesting experiment, a scenario here where it's like I did this for 1 year with no employees. The next year, I also had no employees. So back to back, it was one man doing as much work as one man can do in a year. And the only difference between the 2 years was that I had focused and really fixed the details. Like I knew exactly what I was going to charge. So I went for the next year. In the next year, I made over $20,000 more for about the same volume of work, and it was just because I had taken a couple of days to go and detail what I charge. Now, those were not my favorite days because I don't like staring at a spreadsheet. But think about this. If it made a $20,000 difference and it took me 2 days to write this, to really figure it out, that's $10,000 a day. I
a
mean,
lot
for
of
the
money
amount
those
of
days.
work that I did, you don't get paid better than that, right?
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is that I learned that money is made in the details, and if you don't know the details, if you don't know what you're paying for parts and materials, if you don't know exactly what you wanna charge for those, you're leaving stuff on the table, and you could be doing better. And it's that tracking, it's being into the details that makes the difference. Now then the next one I'll say this is primarily for service, but, I think it could apply to bid work. But what I learned was I read this book, I can't remember what it's called, but it was just some advice for plumbers. But the main point of the book was to put away the, time and material type work and to come up with a system of flat rates, and you'll make more money. And so I read that and I believed that. And then I went through, and this was another like couple of days in the office, boring, horrible days on a spreadsheet. But what I did was I broke down all of my services. I mean, every single thing that I do for my customers. And I included the general amount of time that it would take and all the materials that I would typically put in with that install. And I lumped those into flat rates. And once I did that and I started using flat rates, because the first 2 years I was time and material, because that's what the last guy was doing. and you can charge time and material and just, like, you can do okay.
Sure. People do it all the time.
Yeah, they do. But once I flat rated it, man, I probably made, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 more the next year. And the reason was, like, when you do time and material, you as the tradesman are at a disadvantage, especially if you're good at what you do, because you're out there and you can do it fast. Like, you've done it so many times, you can just get out there and nail it. And then it's like, well, you charge for a half an hour, you charge for an hour. When if they did it DIY, it would take them a solid day with 5 trips to Home Depot or something, right? And
Right. Yeah.
so you got to realize, like, the fact that you're as awesome as you are at what you do should not be a disadvantage to you in how much money you make. So that's where a flat rate protects me against my own uh, excellence, right? If I'm that good at it and I'm that fast,
Yeah.
so then, On the other hand, what I believe is that a flat rate or a fixed price is fair to the customer, because then you can give it to them upfront. Customers, we talked about customer peace of mind, right? You want to put a customer in an uncomfortable situation. Then go and say, I'm going to do this work for you, but don't tell them how much it will cost.
Right. Yeah. I have no idea how much it's going to cost you.
Yeah, they will
Yeah.
squirm, especially if you're taking longer and longer and running into problems and they still don't know how much this is going to cost. And they're sitting there the whole
Yeah.
time like, oh, what's this going to do
Right.
to me?
If you like somebody watching over your shoulder, charge them hourly, right?
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll stand there and watch.
So, so a flat rate on an installation, and maybe you're doing bigger installations, but when you have it figured and you have a fixed price, it's fair to the customer, because you first of all, you can charge every customer the same, right? If I was doing time and material, maybe it took less time over here and more time over there, so they had to I charge them more. That's not fair, given that it's basically the same thing. And of course, it wasn't fair to me. But if I level that and say to everyone, if you want this service, this is the price, then it's fair. And the reality with customers is they can either like your price or not. They can agree or disagree. If they decide they don't like it and don't buy it, then they didn't buy it. And maybe sometimes if you're desperate for work, that's like disappointing. But at the same time, it's like, when it comes to like setting your prices, one of the things that I really believe is the price is right when the customer is willing to pay it. If you have someone out there and you may be charging way more than the next guy, and other people may compare you and be like, dude, you're such a ripoff. But if you have customers that are willing to pay you that amount, then the price was right, because you have an agreement with that customer. And you don't have, I mean, I'm not talking about like intentionally trying to rip people off, but I'm
Oh, you're
talking
not talking
about,
about
you know what
gouging.
your business
Right.
costs are. You know how much money you
Right.
want to make in your life. You're into the details of your business and you've flat rated this thing because you know what that means to you. And then you go out and people can take it or leave it. And in this day, like most, there's such a huge need for hands on. You can probably, if one customer's like, no thanks, you can probably still find people who are like, well, yeah, I'll pay a professional to get this done right. And I want that. And like, if you have that flat rate, I'm just saying, like, from my experience, I made way more money doing flat rates and having things fixed. But I also felt like I was having better customer interactions because it was upfront. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. You can go right up front before I even get my tools out of my vehicle. Like, we've already had the discussion. You know how much this is going to cost. And I mean, of course, if little things come up, like there's changes, you talk about it along the way. But customer peace of mind, you want to establish that, be upfront with the customer on everything, especially on what you're going to charge. Because then if it's a bitter pill, they'll swallow it up front. And in the end, when you've done an incredible job, they'll give you a high five, right? And they'll, most of the time they'll be like, well, yeah, it was worth it. Thanks. And I'm glad that you told me what it would cost. I'm prepared now. So it's a totally different customer experience when they don't know what you're going to charge them, and then you slap them in the face at the end with this fat bill, and they're like, ah,
Right.
okay.
Exactly.
Then
And
we go
well,
back
and then
to,
they try to dissect it and Like, say,
Yeah.
"Well, you were on the phone. I saw you on the phone," like that
Yeah.
kinda thing, "Oh, you charged me for when you were talking on the phone?"
And
Like
that's
that
another
kinda
good
thing.
point is that when you flat rated it, then for me, it kinda takes the pressure off because it's like, if it takes me 3 hours or it takes me 6 hours, I mean, that's on me. I charge you the same.
Right, probably makes you a
And
better
if that
tradesman.
6 hours is because I had to go and, like, talk to go help one of my employees somewhere, or I was on the phone for a while with my accountant or something stupid like that, right?
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't affect what the customer is gonna pay, and it may affect how much time I spent there on the job, but ultimately, I make what I make on it, you know? And again, like you say, they can't scrutinize me and be like, "Well, I saw you taking this and doing that, and you're wasting my time, and I'm paying you hourly."
right.
Just
I
you get it.
You tied your
That's
shoes twice,
yeah,
you charging me for tying your shoes, you know?
yeah, and that's a negative customer experience. And ultimately, we always wanna provide the most incredible customer experience because that's what once again, you deliver peace of mind, they will come back and they'll bring people with them, and that's how you grow. That's how you grow a business.
Yeah, I know so many tradesmen that do charge hourly, and they just can't stand it when people look over their shoulder. Because they feel like they're just under so much pressure and they do a worse job when they're being watched.
Mhm.
They all say the same thing, and I'm like, "Well, then why are you charging hourly?"
Yeah,
Like, if you really don't want someone watching you, then, don't make them watch you,
yeah.
because what they're really watching is, the cash register going cha-ching, cha-ching,
Uh-huh.
cha-ching with every minute that goes by. So that's what they're really doing. They don't care
Yeah,
what you're doing. They
it's
just wanna
true.
make sure that you're working for them.
Yeah,
So,
and that hourly, charging hourly, I'll just say, like, that's the easy way out. If you're a tradesman and you're out there just working, and I mean, you don't have to do all this forethought and planning and thinking
right.
through your numbers like I was just saying. If you're just like fly by night and let me get the job done, and you can just day by day bill what was that day. But what we're talking about here is, do you want success? Do you want to make a lot more, you know? And then here's the other thing that comes into the mix is, and this is a whole other conversation, but when you start having employees, so now I've got an employee who's not as good as me, who's going to take twice as long as me, but I can't charge hourly because he's slow. That's where the fixed price protects the customer, but enables me to be just level and fair. And if my employee takes twice as long at first, then it's okay because we have
Right,
that
exactly. I mean, what's the
sorted
fair
out.
thing? You hire an employee, you're charging hourly for your expertise. Now
Mhm.
you have an employee who's not as fast as you, doesn't know as much as you. Do you charge the same amount hourly and just let him take longer? Is that fair to the customer? Or do you charge the customer less hourly because he's slower? And now are you even making money? I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah,
hourly
it's
is
not worth it. So
it's a
that's
tough
where it's
way
like,
for
if I'm
accounting.
gonna if I'm gonna install a water heater, or my employee's gonna install a water heater, we charge the same amount. Might take him longer, but ultimately, I'm gonna make sure the quality's there and my employee's doing a good job. But yeah, that's where the customer you want customer peace of mind, give them a fair, upfront, flat price, no matter what it takes on your end. And of course, you've done the math on your end to create that price that's gonna protect you against the slow employee, right? You know that, like, his wages are covered and you're still okay and you still made some money today, instead of
Right.
being like, "Ugh, did I make
And
money
if
on
if
that?"
not, either he needs to go a little faster, or maybe you need to rethink. Maybe your flat rate is not what it needed to be to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. No, that's it. I wholeheartedly agree, and I've seen firsthand what hourly rate can do to a reputation.
Mhm.
Honestly, I mean, you could be out there doing your level best, but just because you're charging hourly, and it shocked the customer at the end because it took so long, longer than anybody thought. Um, they are through the roof, and then they're on the internet talking bad about you
Oh,
because
yeah.
you charge them so much money.
Yeah, and don't think that they're not paying attention to when there's 2 of you there, and one of you's working, the other one's looking at his phone. Oh, they know that.
Oh, they're watching.
They're watching, and
Oh,
that's where the
they're
flat rate
watching.
protects
Yeah,
you, because then it's like, "Well, yeah, but we agreed to this is the price." and it's my loss if one of us is just on our phone today. That's not how I want to run my business, but in reality, those things happen, especially with the way things are and smartphones in our hands, you know. But you
Yeah.
brought up a good point there, and that's circling back to customer peace of mind. If you want good Google reviews and you're going to ask them for those, then of course you have to deliver customer peace of mind. If you don't do a good job, and one of the best ways to upset a customer is these experiences we've talked about where they feel like they're getting ripped off, where they feel like this is an unfair deal. Um, if you want, how do I say this? You have to work way harder to get positive comments than negative. Negative just goes like crazy. Everyone, like if they've had a bad experience, then they want to tell 5 people today that that plumber came in, it was a horrible experience. He ripped me off, never use him.
Right,
But
it almost it becomes, like, self-righteous.
yeah,
Like, they feel like they need to tell people
yeah,
how bad you are so that they can protect those other people,
exactly.
and that this doesn't happen to someone else.
And if you get into human psychology, it's a coping method. Like when we have a negative traumatic experience, it's like, I need to share this. I need to get this off. I need someone to help me carry this, right? So it's normal. But what I'm saying is that it takes a lot more effort. Like you don't just do a good job, you have to do an amazing job to get someone to say something nice about you. It's really
That's
easy to
true,
get someone to say something negative. It takes real work to get them to say something positive. And
especially publicly.
yeah, and especially publicly and to their friends and family and people that they care about. So that really should be our goal in the business. Like going back to this scenario, if I'm going to go start brand new in a state, these are going to be my methods. I'm going to get my name out. I'm going to have my vehicle plastered so that I'm very visible to people and they know where I'm at. But
So
I'm
you're
going
a
to work
believer in that,
really
huh?
hard.
A vehicle wrap?
I think the more you can put into it, the better. But I
Cool.
mean, for
I
me,
agree with that, yeah, I mean, you see the trucks and the vans, and they're all wrapped, and it's just it's obviously that is a company vehicle
yeah.
right there.
But I'll say this too, it
I
depends
think
on
that
your
stuff
customer.
works.
And you need to know your customers. We're probably dealing with some contractors that are listening here that are like, "Well, I just work for general contractors. I don't work for the general public." And let me just say that what I have
Well,
said
that's different.
here about establishing customer peace of mind directly applies to when you're working for a general contractor. The kind of work that I do right now, I work primarily for one, maybe two contractors. Given that I spend my full time in education and I just need a little work because I love doing it, right?
Sure,
So I go out and I do custom
right.
homes. That's a nice niche because I can charge a little more on those. I mean, it's like, how do I say that? Like custom, you're into higher end stuff and there's a better profit margin. But I have basically one that feeds me most of my work. So I don't have, it's not like the same game as if I'm trying to please the public, but it is in that I'm trying to provide peace of mind to him. And what I love is when he will say to me, and he literally says this to me, Tom, I don't care how much you charge. I want you on this job because he wants my quality, he wants my reliability, and he's okay with what I charge. That's an excellent relationship. And this establishing customer peace of mind applies directly to any customer, including general contractors, because when you know what that general contractor wants, and by the way, most of them all want the same thing: quality, reliability, and some affordability. When you know what they want and you deliver that, then they're going to keep feeding you. You're going to be the guy that's like, hey, that's my plumber, that's my guy, and I'm going to always use him. So yeah, these it applies to any customers that you're dealing with. And it seems like I had a thought I got derailed. What was the other thing I was saying?
I mean, it was all so good. You could get derailed all you want. We you were talking about,
We were talking
you
about getting good reviews.
we were talking about getting good reviews. I don't know if you mean, you were talking about, whether you have, just some commercial customers, that hire you all the time and you're their sub, or if you're talking to, if you're dealing directly with the residential customers, the homeowners.
Yeah. I think the unfinished thought that I had was going back to that starting in a new state. We were talking about
Oh,
wrapping your vehicle.
oh,
Oh, that's what
that.
it was.
Yeah. Oh,
Wrapping your vehicle is good if you want to please the public, but for someone like if all I do is work for one contractor, but I totally please him. And I'm not saying you should do work for one contractor. If you're running a business, you probably diversify, get more customers. But basically, like a general contractor doesn't care as much if I have a wrap on my vehicle. He cares more about the kind of work I do, my reliability. But what I'm saying is if you know your customer,
well, the GC might even like it if you don't have a wrap, because
yeah, because
then,
it's gonna it,
yeah, you're just, he's representing himself, and then you're representing yourself. He'd probably prefer if you didn't, right?
yeah, and some of them, like in commercial, there's a lot of them that just have a good utility work vehicle, a truck or a van, and it may not be marked much at all, just a little thing on the door or something, and that's fine. But that again goes back to like knowing your customer. What kind of customer do you want, and what do they want? And you can meet those needs, and ultimately, whether you're dealing with a general contractor or the general public, like finding out what they want and then delivering peace of mind is going to be what gets me into that new business in a new state. I'm confident that I could apply these principles and that I could get it up and going again. I've done it several times now, just starting up from scratch. So I sold that business. I started from scratch and I started reaching out to general contractors because I hadn't done that kind of work. It was outside of when I sold the business, outside of my non-compete agreement. I even was open with the new owner. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm teaching, but I have some time and I'd like to be involved with plumbing. I'm gonna take on some work. Are you okay with this? And they were okay with that. So I started from scratch, right? And I started building relationships. And we talk about establishing customer peace of mind does take time. In each situation, it took me about a year to get into a really good rhythm with customers and plenty of work. And you have to be okay with and be patient with that. Like it's gonna take some time to build this, but when you apply these principles, guaranteed it will work.
Wow, Tom, that was great, man. Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you for
Yeah.
all that. So I suppose we've taken up enough of your time today. Any final thoughts that you can leave us with, or again, that we're talking to brand new contractors or contractors that are maybe stuck in a holding pattern, and they're trying to get to that first $1 million. You got any tips?
Um, After all we've talked about, I would say make sure that you know what you're worth and that you stick to it. Um, Especially when you're starting out brand new, it's easy to discount because you're desperate. It's like, I need this work so bad that I'm willing to do it for anything, even if it's not a lot. But you need to know from the start, like that you're skilled, you're qualified, and that you're worth it, and be courageous enough. And this is for your own sake because you'll need the money to keep going. Be courageous enough to charge what you're worth. And coming to that sometimes takes time to figure out like what does that mean? What am I worth? What is this business worth? But
Mm.
taking the time, like we've talked about today, getting into the details of your business, knowing exactly how much things cost you and how much you're going to charge your customers, being fair and upfront with your customers, and then just sticking to it. I think that's probably my advice is um, it's a journey, but embark in that journey to discover what you're worth. And I mean, here's one thing you don't want to do is a lot of contractors will take the shortcut and go to talk to others, be like, "Hey plumber, what do you charge? Hey plumber, what do you charge?" Okay, I'll just kind of charge that and see how it goes. And there's a lot of them that run that way, and you can run a business and make money that way. But at the same time, it's like every company has different overhead, different expenses, different things involved. And so you can't base your business off of someone else's pattern, off of someone else's what they charge. You have to know your own. You have to know what your costs are. You have to know how much money you want to make in your life. Maybe that plumber who's charging this much doesn't make as much as you want to make in your life. And you need to know those things.
So,
So,
um, it's probably worth mentioning. You're probably talking about within some sort of reason, right? Because the market to some degree will determine what you can charge,
Yeah, and
right?
the
So
market will
so
check
I
you.
I'm sure you're not saying, well, if all the plumbers are charging $100, but I feel like I'm worth $300, maybe not,
Yeah,
that would be a
yeah.
tough.
No, and that's true. The market will check you because like if you're charging too much, you just won't have work. People won't accept your and that goes back to affordability. That one of those pillars of peace of mind. If you're too expensive, you will find out. But
Right, and if no one ever says no to your price, you're probably not charging enough.
or I had customers that were saying, "Man, you're so affordable. You don't charge as much as the other guys. I love you." And then I'm going, "I am not being fair to myself."
Right,
Like
exactly,
I if I'm
exactly.
getting those comments consistently, "Wow, you're so cheap. I love you. I'll
Yeah,
use you forever." Then I'm like, "It's time to raise
yeah.
my price."
I'm so busy, I forgot what day it is, and everyone says yes to my price, I might be charging too much. Yeah.
Yeah, so the market will check you. And I think that's a good point. Like you can't just charge whatever in the world you want, but as long as you're within the competitive range, then you should stick to it. You shouldn't be like giving things away for free just because you're trying to get started. You should be brave enough. That's probably one of my mistakes in the early on was like I thought, how do I get new customers? Maybe if I'm just the cheapest guy around, everyone will love me and I'll get all this business.
That's one
No,
way to do it.
it works kinda, but then you get stuck in it. And then I had the problem of having to raise my prices on my customers. I mean, we all deal with those sorts of things, but find out, and that's a good thing to do. Talk to the other tradesmen around you and find out what they're charging if they're willing to share. And then don't just run with it, but compare it to what is in your business and what you hope to do, and then test it on the market. And the market will tell you if you're in a good range or not. If you're not, make adjustments as you go. You're always adjusting as you go. And that's the other thing is like if you're in the details of your business, you're looking at reports, you're seeing how you're doing, and you're making adjustments all along the way. And that's how you
Well,
keep
sure.
yourself on course.
Right, I mean, you gotta pay attention, right? I mean, can you imagine, charging 2020 rates today?
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't just stick with what you
Mm.
did in the past. It has to you have to roll with it with the times. So
Well, thank you again, Tom. Really, really appreciate it, and, for anyone watching or listening, if you got something out of this, if you learned something, if this helped you, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. It helps us. It tells us what we need. If you have questions or if you want a topic covered, send us a comment, send us a question, let us know. It all helps, and it all helps keep the channel going. So we really appreciate you, Tom, and anybody that's listening and watching. And Tom, you have a couple of books published, and you have your own YouTube channel. Don't want to
I
forget
do,
to
yeah.
talk about that. What's the name of your channel again?
Yeah,
I don't want
it's
to get it
Plumber
wrong.
Tom. If you want any help on the
Is it
DIY or
Plumber
if
hyphen
you're
Tom?
yeah, Plumber-Tom on
Plumber
YouTube.
hyphen Tom. Okay, very
Lots
cool.
of
Just
plumbing
like
resources there. So,
awesome. And then where can people find your book?
oh yeah, I don't have them on my desk this time, but
That's all
but you can
right.
find them on Amazon if you're looking to pass a plumbing contractor exam. I've got a couple of books. You could even just type my name into Amazon, and you'll see them. But
You could type Plumber Tom
or
into
Thomas
Amazon or
Hicken.
Thomas Hicken.
Yeah, 'cause
Hicken.
correct. Yeah.
Thomas Hicken into Amazon, and your books will pop up. Okay. Well, super cool. Well, thanks again for the time. Plumber Tom, you're the man. Really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And
Pleasure.
all right, everybody. We'll see you next time.